Welcome back. MTG Joe here. Today we are doing another installment of the weekly metagame breakdown for the standard best of one format on MTG Arena. We're going to look at the best decks to take to MTG standard ladder if you want to hit mythic rank, if you just want a new brew. We're going to look at the popularity of decks, giving a breakdown in terms of what you could anticipate seeing on the ladder, and then the corresponding win rates. As always, high play rates doesn't necessarily correlate to high win rate. It does sometimes, doesn't always. Sometimes people just like playing decks, they're cheaper to build, whatever it may be. So we will look at the data from Untapped GG, what you see on the screen. It's a third-party companion app that tracks user win rates, yours included if you'd like. And then it gives us a whole bunch of cool stats that we can then look at and kind of see where the metagame is currently situated. If you want to use Untapped, the link is in the video description down below. And then I'll paste all these deck lists themselves. We're going to look at ladder data for Mythic only this week. We've got enough of it that we can start getting a picture of what the Mythic ranks look like. We're also going to be looking at some community lists of decks that aren't necessarily heavy played or well-known commodities, but have helped them get into Mythic rank. So another layer of details that will be included. One thing to note, I am starting a series of deck demos for some of the more popular decks. So while we do talk about it on here, I have started, so Selesnya Rabbits, Rakdos Lizards should both be up. We are doing a Grixis control deck that is also going to be featured while not heavily played in best of one. It is a deck that's put up some results in best of three. I ported over a version to best of one to see how it fared, so that video will be out later in the week as well. But I will be doing it for some of the other more prominent decks of the format, so you have a guide as well if you'd like. You can always find it in the playlist. If there's any decks you'd like to see in the best of one, drop a comment and I'll start. It's just slowly accumulating these videos while also doing the metagame breakdowns for the various formats. Enough talking. Let's look at some data. So, popularity of the day, Mythic rank, Rakdos Aggro, which is Mono Red's cooler older brother. Basically Mono Red with Callous Sellsword to fling at your opponent. 22% of the meta. Then we have Mono Red itself, strictly Mono Red at about 6%. Almost 30%. This is kind of indicative. I honestly feel like having recorded these videos, almost half of my games have been against some variation of this Mono Red deck. And I love Mono Red probably more than anyone. It does make it a little challenging to produce some videos when you have to just consider, am I going to die right away? We have Selesnya Rabbits at 7%, and then Orzhov Bats at about 5%, Rakdos Lizards at about 4%, Azorius Control 3.5%, Mono Black Discard 3%, and Abzan Control at 3%. This Abzan Control deck, people keep playing it. It's got a terrible win rate. In terms of the graphs, we see like the Mono Red decks start of the month were 57% play rate. Season resets, everybody just picks it up to try to get to Mythic as quick as possible, and then kind of goes from there. We have seen an uptick in terms of the Rabbits. What I found with the Rabbits, having played the games, it's very strong against the field minus the Rakdos deck. I found against the Rakdos deck, you were like a turn too slow. I was playing a version that had also a smite in it, and then it's like 2 smite, 2 case. I think I would prefer to play full smite or get lost. You're just a little bit slower than the deck, and then they could fling the damage, so you're kind of playing defense at the same time as you're trying to play offense. But you can see in the video, we played a couple games against the deck to see how it kind of plays out. So Mythic rank, just a shade under 50,000 games played in the last week in Mythic rank. The highest win rate deck is Mono Red Aggro, not Rakdos, Mono Red. So what differentiates this deck? It's a little bit more interactive. This one's at 71%. It is kind of a mouse sub-theme. So we have the addition of Manifold Mouse. This is buildyourown.embercleavemouse.com. So at the beginning of your combat, target mouse, now notably only mouse, gets your choice of double strike or trample. Obviously with a big boost in power with all the pump effects, can be quite meaningful for the deck. So you have Demonic Ruckus in here, Blazing Crescendo, ways to pump your team, get some card advantage. What's nice about this version is you have a little bit more player agency, I'd say, in the red base mirrors. In the Rakdos one, it's pretty much like who goes first and who's got a better kind of hand, and then who just has it, I've found. Like I was playing a bit of it to just learn the deck itself. This one, because you have shocks and lightning strikes, you can kind of interact with your opponent a little bit better. Heartfire Hero gets bigger, kind of plays into the mouse theme, your slick shots, all that jazz that we've seen time and time again. Rock-Face Village increases its validity with the increased amount of mice in the deck. I personally don't love Demonic Ruckus. I think just playing the mouse pump effect for trample could be reasonable. It also cycles. While this does draw a card, it needs to resolve. And its sorcery speed, it's a little bit more telegraphed. You could plot it, yes, but you're taking a turn off. I don't know. I've never loved this card. I know some people do. I don't know. To me, it's got a lot of great keywords, but it never plays out as well for me as I think it would. Then the Rakdos Aggro deck. So notably this one here, I had copied this one originally, and then I just fixed up the mana base, didn't realize it was only a Sulphur Springs. You could just play more duels if you want. You don't technically need the duels. I don't think I've ever cast the Callous Sellsword side. This version's the Fling version, so basically Scamp as well as Heartfire Hero can deal damage equal to their power, so it basically doubles up the Fling damage that Callous Sellsword would be doing. A bunch of pump effects, Dreadmaw's Ire, Felionous Rage, Might of the Meek, Bane Splitter, kind of mixed into there. I've had like multiple turn 3 kills with this deck. It's very, very efficient, very quick. Does kind of fold to some removal, but that's kind of what you're playing. These games go very quick, so if you lose, you just jump back in it and kind of beat up on your opponent again. Moving on, we go to Rakdos Lizards. So this is actually the deck you can see here. I played it a day ago that we will be featuring in the video. I had a very hot start, went 8-1 to start, and then finished 8-4, I believe. Just some like weird variance towards the end. In terms of just the way it flipped, but the deck felt very strong, very promising. The one change I did make, so Fake Your Own Death felt useless to me. It's like a scam card, but it's too much mana. The Scales of the Shale, basically for the most part, is 1 mana in this deck a lot of times, since you play out your lizards naturally. It gives the same indestructible. It gives lifelink as well and a power boost. So it could just be spurt damage that they're not expecting for lethal. The lifelink helps in the mono red mirror. So I just made that one switch, cut the Fake Your Own Death, play the Scales. Felt really good, but really aggressively slanted deck. Hired Claws, Iridescent. There's a lot of card advantage through like the Fireglass Mentor and the Laughing Jasper Flint. And then 8 pieces of removal help against the like mono red decks, the Rakdos decks, the other creature mirrors. There's also some good utility lands in the mana base itself. Then we go to Orzhov Discard. So this is basically the evolution of the mono black discard deck. The mono black deck's got like a sub 50% in terms of discard overall. This one here plays a little bit more value engine. You have Pixie in here, so this one's at 57%. That can rebuy your stuff. Get Lost as a removal option that also can hit like Caretakers. The Boros like Tokens deck just destroys these discard decks. Temporary Lockdown is another sweeper option here. Now, notably, it will hit some of your smaller stuff, but you're kind of playing the long game anyways. Tithing Blade, stuff like that. Find its talent, way to force their discards. So you do want to be somewhat mindful in terms of your sequencing of this. At the end of the day, you're basically trying to kill your opponent's stuff and then win. I will say there's a lot of 2s in here for the Rakdos deck. I would probably, especially if you're maining the lockdowns, you might want cut downs, but this is kind of the shell of one of the discards. There's also this other version from, this is from Atlas 2020. They went 39-15 with this version of the deck. It's a little bit more mid-range focused, so not all in discard, which I think is a little bit better of an approach. Some Bezos to help you stabilize. Zorlins could rebuy like your Deep Cavern Bats. I could rebuy your Lilianas, Lorens, Preachers, Darkstar Augur, so a lot of value there. Season of the Burrow is a flexible card that can get rid of like Caretakers, could get rid of Forge, just get rid of creatures, whatever it may be. It's exile, could just make you a bunch of like rabbits. There's a whole bunch of utility with this card here. Some virtues. The Darkstar Augur is a little ambitious when you got a bunch of 5 and 7 drops. This is the one card that I'm a little skeptical on, just given the curve of this deck. Like, you know, even though you're just playing a 1-up, that's the first card you're going to flip with it. And the other card, I wouldn't play Fell. Just play Go for the Throat. Against the whole point of that mono red like Rakdos deck is to play at like instant speed, like on their turn. You need to interact with them like before they stack up all the damage. So I think this is going to cost you a lot more games just being sorcery speed. But an interesting take there. Then go to Selesnya Rabbits. So 57%. This one's a little bit different than the one we played. Ours was a little bit more interactive, a little bit lower on the curve. We had the cases, we had the Elspeth Smite, but this one's on the Knight Errant of Eos. Season of Burrow, we were playing a 2 of in the deck, 2 War Leaders. So this one's a little bit more token focused with Seasons, Sanguine Evangelist, to allow you to enable a little bit better into the Knight Errant. I will say, while you can make a lot of tokens, the tokens come on like turn 3, 4, 5 with this deck, as opposed to Convoke, where you're doing it like turn 1, 2 type thing, depending on how you kind of curve out. Like the earliest you probably is like turn 3, the Knight Errant out, where you could turn 2 with Convoke more consistently. These 1-drops are great in the deck, just different angles of attack, get pretty large. Phineas was pretty solid and often was a must-answer threat, just helping you snowball outpace. Value Quest Caller, Beauregard, like all these creatures were very strong. Hop to it was also really nice in terms of the deck. The only thing I say, like, it was having a hard time against the Rakdos deck. I would say if we'd like to play more, I would probably play like the Elspeth Smite. That was the only deck that was beating up on the other creature decks when we were playing. Mono Black Discard. So this is another take a discard. So this one actually has a somewhat reasonable. Didn't realize this one snuck in. The other one that we saw was like 48%. So at least one deck version of the deck's doing well. Just really focused on eating out your opponent's hand. Find its talents, kind of your payoff. Hostile Investigator draws you cards. You got your virtues as kind of your inevitability. Just trying to interact with them as much as possible on the early turns and then kind of take it from there. The one thing I would say, like, you have so much discard with against decks that are going to empty their hand very quickly that I would play like the full go for your throat just as more removal options. Also, 7 colorless lines is very ambitious for this type of deck. Domain. So some of the domain decks have more recently, this one's at 56%, have taken on Heaped Harvest. So this fills a couple of roles. It's your ramp effect on turn 3. So it can help you go turn 3 to turn 5 in terms of Sunfall, allowing you to effectively have a 4-mana Wrath in a way, like a turn 4 Wrath. It's also later game a food, so it gains you life, and it also helps you find another land, helps you set up Domain as well. Since you're playing a lot of the Surveil lands, you don't have Triomes, you have to work a little bit harder for the mana base. The rest of the decks, pretty much the Domain decks we've had of past, Herd Migrations, Traxas, Leyline Bindings, the Angels. This one's maining the temporary lockdowns, well, although hitting your own Beanstalks gives you a little bit more interaction against the aggressive decks. Then we got Mono Black Skeletons. This is a Diamond to Mythic deck. Some folks were asking about this. This one didn't have anything in Mythic, but in Diamond was at 57%. So you're playing kind of the skeleton tribal cards. Corpse of the Lost gives all your skeletons +1 power and haste. It gives you a token, and then if you descended this turn, you may pay a life. If you do, return it to your hand and kind of reset it. So it's kind of damage out of nowhere with your skeletons. Case of the Stash Skeleton lets you tutor afterwards. You have Cult Conscript in here, Forsaken Miner, the Tiny Bones. So lots of kind of cheap creatures. Gissa in here as kind of a top end, makes skeletons is a lord effect, or makes zombies, sorry. So notably zombies, not zombie skeletons. So they don't get haste. But they come into play tapped anyway, so kind of counteracts that. Rakdos joins up as a crime enabler. And then just a ping effect, it forces some discard. The Sandstorm Verge is another crime enabler that you can target each time, and then Gissa can also be targeted. And a couple more community decks. We have for our Orzhov Bats. This one's 40 and 21 by CAC 1975. Looking at this list, a lot of life gain synergies. Case of the Indian Beast, Runelurker Bat, Amalia's gets bigger here. Ilias Core is a way to kind of gain a drain. Essence Chandler as kind of your grows larger over time. Lunar Convocation as a way to kind of play with your life total. So you'll notice there's like some pain lines in the deck. The mana base on this one's kind of dewy. You should be playing full Caves of Koilos, full Concealed Courtyard in here. The pain lines are particularly important because it can enable both the Essence Chandler's ability as well as Lunar Convocation. Sunscape is a way to gain and drain, like you gain, then it drains. Shepherd can be used against kind of these creature mirrors, like the smaller 1 toughness style effects. Gumdrop could be removals, or then rebuys a whole bunch of this stuff. some Virtues on the top end, and Aclazotz kind of mixed in. If you want to play this one, I'll fix the mana base a little in the posting. Then go to Boros Tokens. So this is just one player, Kekaroos. They're 12 and 4. We feature this on my channel as well. This one's very strong. I featured it a couple weeks in a row. I've gotten 7 wins in the standard event with it. The version I play plays 3 Elspeth Smite. More interaction, cheaper scale. I play 3 Forges, 4 Lockdowns, but this one's playing like the Virtues of Loyalty. I'm playing Beza. I'm playing like 1 Virtue. I think 4 Sunfalls is a little too much against the aggressive decks. Like, you want some copies, but the lockdowns tend to be a little bit more timely in terms of when it's hitting. But the core of the deck is making tokens that draw you cards while controlling the board, recurring tokens like Urbrath Forge, Carrot Cake, stuff like that. And then just lots of different ways to gain life. Fountain Port does so much in this deck in terms of drawing you cards, making you tokens, a whole bunch of value add engine with the cards themselves. And then lastly, we have Lazy Bears. They're 82 and 51 with a version of the Innkeeper's Talent Vraska combo. So for those unfamiliar, a level 3 Innkeeper's Talent is basically like doubling season. So it doubles your Planeswalker counters, so you can instant ult either Liliana, force him to sacrifice everything, or just win the game instantly with Vraska, giving your opponent 18 poison counters. You can also instant ult Ren, which then you can play lands and cast permanent spells from your graveyard. Version's a little bit more counter-based as well, so you have Goldvein Hydra, just gets bigger, creates you treasures. Jade Light Spelunker could put lands into play from exploring. You have Go for the Throat as removal, Terra Sunder in here, Choking Miasma as a sweeper, a Sentinel in here, so just kind of grind your mid-range elements of the deck. So that is it for the week. Let me know what you think, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.